Hello, everyone. I hope that you're doing great. Before we start, I would like to introduce myself. My name is ljubica, and I work at Alite International. I'm going to guide you through today's presentation, and afterwards, we're going to have a Q&A session in which my colleague Christian is going to answer every question that you might have regarding marketing automation.
Hi, I'm Christian. I will be moderating the Q&A session. So I will invite everyone, please, to use the Q&A box down on your Zoom screen to submit any question during the presentation, and I will try my best to answer as many of those. And all questions left unanswered, we will send them via email after the session.
Okay, yes, and I also want to add that the presentation is going to last for about 40 minutes, and then the Q&A session will last about 15. Like Christian already mentioned, please feel free to write down any question that you might have. So why did we decide to talk about cross-channel marketing? Well, cross-channel marketing has been a trendy word in the past few years, and very often people are thinking of different things when referring to it. However, in today's presentation, when talking about cross-channel marketing, I will refer to interacting with your customers across all available channels, both online and offline, in a way that it doesn't isolate the channels from themselves, but rather keeps them integrated in one coherent system. So I would like to start this talk by sharing a few numbers with you that emphasize the importance and the benefits of using marketing automation technology in your efforts to provide an exceptional user experiences into this cross-channel world. So the first numbers that I want to share with you come from a 2018 Marketo study, a leading B2B marketing automation platform. In their study, Marketo found out that 44% of the companies that implement marketing automation technology saw a return of their investment within the first 6 months of implementing it. What's even better, 76% of the companies saw a return of their investment within the first year. Now, being a crowd of business people like yourself, I'm pretty sure that you will agree with me that no matter if we are talking about implementing new strategies or new technologies for your business, the speed of return of investment is very important when making a decision to go with it. In another study done by Omnisend, a cross-channel marketing automation platform, almost 2 billion emails were analyzed, and the results have shown that those campaigns that were sent to different audience segments generated 34.7% higher open rates compared to those campaigns that were sent to non-segmented audience. At the same time, these campaigns also generated 26.5% more purchase orders. What these numbers are telling us is that audience segmentation is very important when creating a proper marketing automation strategy for your business, and that using automation can really boost your audience segmentation capability. In the same study done by Omnisend, it was also recorded that those brands that were using 3 or more channels for customer engagement reported on average 250% higher purchase rate compared to those brands that were using just a single channel. Now, considering that most of the businesses today rely on successful sales to survive, I would say that ignoring this number can seem like a pretty bad idea. And the last numbers that I want to share with you now come from a study done by Braze, a cross-channel engagement platform. So in their study, Braze researched all of their clients' engagement metrics and found out that the brands recorded on average 179% increase in engagement when sending messages in one channel compared to not sending messages at all. Now this is a huge number, right? But wait until you this one. The brands also recorded an astonishing average of 844% increase in engagement when using cross-channel messaging to interact with their customers. So I told you all these numbers, and I know that they seem pretty impressive, but how does a company go about introducing cross-channel marketing automation? We believe that marketing automation can be introduced in companies through a 4-phase strategic approach, starting with your brand always staying in a moment with real-time data tracking, followed by truly knowing your audience through dynamic and advanced segmentation, making every message matter by being relevant and always deliver real value to the customers, and paving the path to loyalty by automating the user journeys of your customers with your products and services. So let's start with the first phase. Staying in a moment requires that your brand is always listening and is always aware of its digital and physical surroundings. It requires that you as a brand know what your customers are thinking, saying, and doing at all times. Well, not literally at all times, but you get the idea. Successful marketing automation starts with data, and by this, I mean both customer data and all other data that is relevant to your brand's presence in the world. Setting up advanced data tracking technology will enable you to track data in real time, which is the key to proper automation. Now, you as a brand, you have to understand your customer behavior as it happens and where it happens, starting with the most obvious, such as your customers' activity on your website, their app usage, if your brand has any, their activity inside your e-commerce stores, how they respond to your emails, and how they respond to your marketing activities in general, their social media engagement with your brand, their offline engagement with your brand, and so much more. But in order to achieve all of this, you need to set up complex integrations of various independent systems, such as your billing and payment methods, your ERP and CRM solutions, your sales channels, e-commerce store, marketing and advertising networks, and your analytics and reporting toolsets as well. But doing all of this takes us to the next challenge, and that is, how do you properly manage the customer data coming from everywhere? There are three key components to make sure that you properly manage your customer data, and the first one is having a customer data platform. Having this type of system will enable you to track data in real time and to stream it down to consumer systems such as your customer engagement platform and your advertising platforms as well. However, only purchasing a customer data platform will not solve all of your problems, which takes us to the second key component, and that is having data management processes in place. Considering that collecting data is mostly costly for most companies, this means that you really need to know why you're collecting every single data point in order to make sure that you're maximizing the value of the data, but at the same time, you are minimizing the cost. So, for example, let's say that you own a sports store, and because of that, you need data such as your customer shoe size, their favorite brand, and even their gender. But none of this would make any sense if you, for example, sell software solutions, right? I know that this example seems pretty obvious, but you will be surprised at how many companies are actually collecting data that is very irrelevant to their products and services. And the third key component here is having data security policies in place. So I want to note here that this is something that you must do in order to be fully compliant with existing data privacy laws, such as the GDPR. This means that you must collect the data that is only absolutely necessary for you to have it, and that you're doing it in a way that is very secure. It also means here that you as a brand must be very clear and transparent about all the ways you're collecting your customers' data, and that you always ask for consent. So let me go next. Once you have all the integrations set up, the processes defined and tested, and your policies enforced, you will have plenty of data coming in, starting with the most basic of data to the highly valued behavioral data. And once you have these insights, you will be able to recognize patterns in your customer behavior and to start breaking down silos of customer data. This way, you will have more insight that will be very valuable for your next marketing activities. And for example, you will find that your customers mostly read articles on weekends at home, that they mostly use an iPhone 8 when interacting with your brand, that your customers watch a product explainer video before making a purchase, and that they were actually exposed to 8 marketing messages before making their first purchase, and that your customers return 2 months later to make the same purchase again. But once you have all these insights, you will have the power to truly start knowing your audience. And just like the relationships you have in your private life, truly knowing your audience is the perfect foundation to make sure that you build a strong and lasting relationship with your customers. So before I move on to the next slide, I want to make a quick recap of what I've explained so far. And in this presentation, we're covering the 4-phase strategic approach of introducing cross-channel marketing in companies, starting with your brand always staying in a moment with real-time data, then truly knowing your audience with dynamic segmentation, making sure that every message you send matters by always being relevant and delivering value to your customers. And the fourth and the last one is paving the path to loyalty by automating the user journeys of your customers. So right now I just finished talking about the first one. And for those of you who joined us later, you can now hear me talking about the second one, which is truly knowing your audience with dynamic segmentation. So once you have the right customer data, you will be able to segment your audience so that you can craft strategies and communications based on the specific needs of each segment and each individual customer. So you will be able to build advanced segments based on the following attributes, starting with demographic and geographic data, which is the most basic of data for your customers. And here we have attributes such as age, gender, ethnicity, education, religion, language, etc. And geographic attributes, which include your customers' locations, such as postal codes, states, countries, cities, etc. And then we move on to psychographic and behavioral attributes that are based on the human characteristics of consumers, such as your customers' personality, attitude, values, interests, etc., and even spending habits, purchasing habits, social media engagement, offline engagement, and so much more. Now, you may think that this isn't anything new, that companies have been doing segmentation for years. It's how outbound marketing works, right? But let me tell you an example and show you what is really the difference here. So before I move on to the next slide, I can see that you guys already have been asking questions, and I'm going to read one loud because it's very relevant to what I've been talking about right now. It says, how can I segment my customers if I don't have any demographic data about them? This is an interesting question. Naturally, there will be a moment, usually at the beginning of a business lifetime, when you will not have a lot of data or even enough data about your customers. So what you can do in such situation is to target your whole audience with a single campaign, but this must be done based on previous market or competition research. So before you launch any campaign, make sure to do this first. And once you have enough engagement data from this campaign, you will be able to segment your customers for future campaigns. And for example, if you offer 2 products in your campaign, let's say a water bottle and a tea mug, in your next campaign, you can segment your customers based on their product preferences from the first one. So let's move on to the next slide. Well, right now, I'm going to tell you an example of how static email lists work and why they are outdated. So in order for a campaign to go out, the marketing team will have to write up the requirements for their target audience. And let's say that we are talking about a campaign for a new cosmetic product and that our target audience is women from Stockholm that are between 25 and 35 years of age. So these requirements are then given to the data team. The data team runs an SQL query on the customer database and comes back with a resulting list of users. This list is then given to the marketing team, which imports it into the email service provider and ends up with a static email list of customers ready to be targeted with a campaign. So can you spot what is the problem here? Imagine that, for example, 1/3 of the customers by now already buy the product. And maybe some of them even moved out from Stockholm or even changed their email address. So in this case, you will end up wasting email messages, and even worse, you will send irrelevant messages to your customers that might drive them away from you in the sense that they will unsubscribe, report you from spam, or even stop shopping from you. So as you can see, this is how static email lists work. They don't always guarantee you the campaign success that you wish to have. And because of that, this is where dynamic segmentation steps in. So dynamic segmentation works in a much more agile way. And just like I previously mentioned, it allows you to capture user activity data as it happens, to process it in real time and to stream it down to consumer systems such as your customer engagement platform and your advertising platforms as well. However, with modern cross-channel engagement platforms, you as a marketer or your marketing team won't need to learn how to run an SQL query in order to get the segmentation results that you want to have. This is happening because in most cases, these cross-channel engagement platforms offer their own simple drag and drop toolsets that allow you to build out segments based on the available customer data. So to fit the example from the previous slide, in order for the campaign to be successful, we would need to have the following 3 filters. So starting with age filter, because one of our requirements was that the target audience should be between 25 and 35 years of age. Then we would also need a location filter because also a requirement was that the target audience should be based in Stockholm. And the third filter that we would also need is customer status filter because we are targeting active customers from our email list. So once you set up the filters and data reaches the platform, the segments are automatically built out and users fall into their appropriate segment. And this is what actually makes these segments dynamic. It is because every time a new data point reaches the platform, the segments are automatically built out and users, the segments are refreshed. And because of that, users fall in and out of segments constantly. This means that in our example, this means that as soon as somebody buys the product, the customers then move to a new segment where they won't be getting the same promotional messages for the particular product that they just bought. So now that you set up the filters and data reaches the platform, and you have all these insights from these activities, you have also segmented your audience, and you now have the perfect foundation to make sure that every message you send out will matter. And the key to making sure that every message you send out matters is relevancy. We believe that relevancy is achieved by delivering the right content in the right context. So what do I mean by delivering the right content? Let's say, for example, that you own an online goods store and you have different groups of people visiting your website. Some really like audio equipment, another group has children and they're more interested into buying toys, and the third group is really into home decoration. So once you know your customers' needs and interests, you will be able to create a content that will suit each segment of customers. This way, you are making sure that your customers will actually want to read or watch whatever you show them on any of your channels. This is very, very important because once you do this, this will increase the relevancy of that message for your customers. And for the second part about delivering the right content in the right context, I want to tell you more about one of the most important features that cross-channel engagement platforms offer, and that is triggering. In our case, triggering refers to defining specific user events or actions as triggers for a certain campaign. And before I go on about triggering, I want to tell you a bit a number about this. And triggered campaigns have shown to give 102% higher click-through rates compared to non-triggered campaigns. So that being said, this type of campaigns make sure that you contact your customers when they want to and when they need to hear from you. Before I go on, I can see that some of you have asked a very good question, and it says, is it possible to send messages to my customers when they are near my store? Well, in fact, yes, I was just about to tell you about this. There's a really amazing feature that more advanced customer engagement platforms offer, and it is called geofencing. So this enables brands to set up geographical perimeters. For example, let's say a 2 kilometers radius around your store, and this will act as a trigger for a campaign. So this means that whenever a customer is within this perimeter, they will be getting a message to their device, and it will say something like, "Hey Anna, come to our store and grab a 20% discount today only. You're just 500 meters away from our store." So of course, this message will be customized by you, but I'm just giving you an example of how it can look like. So let's move on. I also want to note here that every question that you have is going to be later answered by Christian. Right now, I'm just answering those questions that are really related to the slide. So let's see what exactly a trigger can be. A trigger can be any user action that requires a follow-up message, such as a user signing up to your newsletter. I also want to note here that a trigger can be any user inaction, such as somebody not opening your email for a whole month. And as you can see, it's extremely important to be very strategic about which events you're going to set up as triggers, because setting up the right triggers will boost the engagement with your product or service. And this will simply happen because these interactions deliver a real value to your customers. So let's move on to the next slide. Right now, I want to tell you more about personalization. If you work in marketing, chances are that you've heard about it hundreds of times, and maybe some of you are even rolling their eyes and are thinking, oh no, not another personalization talk. But trust me, you are hearing this for a reason. So cross-channel engagement platforms enable you to personalize the content of your messages in real time based on the available customer data or data that comes from external sources. So let's go back to the online goods store example and say that it is Women's Day. Because of that, you decided to send a promotional campaign to all of your female customers. And by now, this message is already custom made for that audience. But even within that audience, every customer is an individual with their own characteristics, wants, and needs. So this takes us to the next challenge, which is how do you come up with a message that is unique enough for each recipient, but at the same time, it comes from the same campaign. So marketing automation offers a solution for this as well. And that is by automatically changing the content within the campaign based on the available customer data. And this can be something like previous purchases or even recorded interest. I also want to note here that you can use external data coming from other sources. For example, you can use weather data from weather forecast apps in order to contextualize the message based on the current weather conditions. So as you can see, personalization is so much more than just a common buzzword, and it is definitely so much more than just mentioning your customer's name in an email. The main point here is that every customer should receive a unique version of the campaign, which will be completely personalized for them. And this will increase the relevancy of that message and the value of it for your customers. But for your business, this will mean higher open rates, higher click-through rates, more conversions, more revenue, and ultimately longer lasting customer relationships. So in the next slide, I want to tell you more about cross-channel engagement platforms. And I'm pretty sure that by now most of you have noticed that I mentioned it a few times. So what I mean by this is a marketing technology system that allows brands to interact and engage with their customers over multiple, but mostly digital channels. So depending on the platform itself, this can include channels such as email. This can include channels such as email, in-app messages and push notifications, SMS and phone calls, web browser messages, digital advertising networks, social media platforms, direct mail messages. And I also want to include here even your channels such as displaying notifications on smart TV screens and sending voice messages over smart voice assistants. So the great thing about these customer engagement platforms is that not only do they allow you to interact with your customers over multiple channels, but also the engagement data from one channel influences the activity on all other channels, meaning that you are able to set up rules and automations that depend on each other to make sure that you are engaging with your customers wherever they are, but at the same time, you are respecting their privacy and you're not over messaging them. Furthermore, having all your engagement metrics in a central hub gives you the possibility to have more advanced analytics of your marketing activities. And thanks to this, you will be able to understand which channels work the best for your brand and ultimately which bring in the highest return of investment. So the last thing that I want to note here about cross-channel engagement platforms is that choosing the right platform for your business will mostly depend on the number and the type of channels that you want to use for customer engagement. It will also depend on the size of your customer base, but ultimately it will depend on the budget that you have. But one of the greatest benefits of automation for your marketing team will be the release of their time to focus on the bigger picture and to start thinking strategically how to enhance and optimize the user journey of your customers in order to pave the path towards brand loyalty. And this takes me to the next challenge, and that is, how do you become your customer's favorite brand? So one of the ways that can help you to create loyal customers is through building automated user journeys. With cross-channel engagement platforms, you have the option to build out workflows of messages, which are based on user activity and interaction with your brand. And this is done in order to guide the customers through their journey with relevant messages every step of the way. So this means that you can start building automation that will interact with prospects while they're in the most aware state of mind. For example, you can show them web browser messages while they're browsing a product on your website. Or for example, show them ads with a discount on a product that they browsed on your website a couple of hours ago. You can also set up an onboarding user journeys where you will send sequences of messages over different channels in order to educate your customers on how to use your product or service. Another example that we can include here is engaging and retaining already existing customers by showing them the latest updates or features of your product, or to simply notifying them about things that matter to your customers, such as receiving a message or a comment from another user. And the last use case of this automated user journeys that I want to share with you right now is identifying lapsed or almost lapsed customers and send them relevant win-back messages to remind them of the benefits they have of using your product or services, or even of you as a brand in general. So in order to make this more clear for you, I want to take you through an example of an automated cross-channel user journey that I believe it will give you more insight about how these user journeys work. So let's say that, for example, you have written an article about the newest trends in home decoration. This article was then published to a popular website. A prospect reads this article, comes across your brand, and decides to visit your website. And the moment the prospect lands on the website, this is when automation actually starts. This means that the website gives the prospect a unique cookie ID in order to recognize him by. And with this, you can also know your prospect's location and the device they've been using. The prospect is also added to an audience for advertising your product, which is, for example, let's say a carpet from your e-store. And because of this, you decide to show social media and display ads to your prospect. So let's say that after some time, the prospect sees a couple of these ads and decides to visit your website again. But the difference is that this time, the prospect decides to buy the product from your e-store. And once he does this, this is when you actually start gathering more information about your prospect, which is, for example, you will know their email, name, shipping address, payment method, and from now on, even their purchase history. The prospect, who is now already a customer, is then added to an exclusion audience for the bought product, which means that they will no longer see the same promotional ads for the product that they just bought. So now that the customer is added to an exclusion audience, they are also added to an email onboarding workflow. So they receive a few personalized messages that help him how to use the product efficiently. And this will be more information such as how to take care of the carpet, etc. This is all about onboarding the user in a way that they will get to know better the product that they just bought. After some time, you decide that you want to put the customer in another audience for advertising, but this time you're going to advertise your complementary product, which is a mobile app that gives even better user experience to your customers on the go. This seems like a pretty good idea to your customer, so they decide to download the app. They go to the App Store, they download it, and after registering, the customer then receives in-app messages that onboard him and educate him on how to use the app efficiently. This is something that goes in your favor because once the customer knows how to use the app, you can actually retain them to use it as long as possible. So in the meantime, the customer also gets push notifications that will boost the engagement that your customers have with your app. And after some time, you decide that once you have the customer inside your app, this is the perfect time to promote an upsell, which is a premium version of the app. It will give even more value to your customer. So this sounds very good for your customer who ultimately decides to go premium. So once the customer buys the premium version of your app, they're transformed from a one-time subscriber to a long-lasting subscriber to your digital product. So as you can see, having a solid cross-channel marketing automation strategy will enable you to extract the maximum value out of each prospect that interacts with your brand, but ultimately it's going to make sure that you're not missing out on any opportunities in the digital world. So that being said, customer journeys are not linear. They're quite the opposite, because customers may enter the user journey from any given entry point and to move up and down the sales funnel continually, interacting with your brand at different locations at different times. And in our example, this can mean that a customer may first download the app from the App Store, use it for a while, and then forget about it. And after some time, to see your brand again at a completely different location, ending up with visiting your website as the last thing they do on their journey. I know that this seems pretty chaotic, but marketing automation can help you to make sense out of this mess. And most importantly, it will make sure that you're always engaging with your customers with messages that are appropriate to the state of the journey they're at. So on the slide here, I want to show you an example of a user journey that we've met for one of our clients, and it shows all the potential interactions and directions of a user within a digital food platform product. I know that this seems pretty chaotic because there is movement everywhere, but luckily, marketing technology helped us to unravel this mess. Which takes me to the next slide, and I want to say that we've actually built similar user journeys for our clients previously. And in order to automate a journey to that extent, you need to power it up with marketing technology. So on the screen here, you can see a setup of marketing technology systems that we use to power up an automation of the user journey of a client who has an e-commerce store. So we've used systems like Google Analytics and Facebook Pixel to track down data from the web and the mobile app. Then we've also used Segment to manage, process, and stream the customer data. We've also used the Braze customer engagement platform and MailChimp's email service provider to engage with customers over multiple channels. And I also want to note here that we've used a huge stack of different tools and softwares to acquire new audiences, such as Google, Facebook, and Twitter ads, content marketing, landing pages, and social media to close the loop. So all of this cross-channel data is stored on AWS storage bucket, on top of which you can run analytics tools such as Power BI and QLake. So I want to note here that not every company will have to go this far in a way that to employ such a vast area of technology in order to achieve its goals. This really depends on your business side and most importantly on your current needs and future plans. Okay, so one of the questions that I see right now is that it says, when is the right time to implement a marketing automation platform? To be honest, there is no black and white answer to this one, because I would say that once your business gains momentum and starts growing beyond what your marketing and sales team can handle, it is the time to back your business with marketing technology. So this really depends on your business and, like I said, on your current needs and future plans. Considering that most businesses constantly fight over their customers' attention, I would say that building genuine relationship with your customers in today's digital age is fundamental for the success of any aspiring company, and that cross-channel marketing automation will enable you to deliver exceptional, user-focused, and relevant experiences across all touch points. However, even with all the clear benefits of using cross-channel marketing automation and the abundance of available technology for it, some companies still fail at implementing marketing automation successfully. We believe that this is happening because companies aren't following through the four-phase strategic approach, starting with the setup of real-time data tracking, then dynamic segmentation of your audience, followed by creating relevant cross-channel engagement with personalized content and triggered messaging, and finally, the strategic automation of user journeys. So let's go back to the beginning of this presentation when I shared a few numbers with you. I was stated that 76% of the companies that implement marketing automation technology see a return of their investment within the first year. Now, you may ask, if marketing automation is that powerful, why aren't all companies successful at it? That's why in this slide, I want to tell you more about the top 3 reasons that are behind why businesses fail at automation implementation. So the first reason is the lack of strategic approach. So very often companies decide to purchase and implement a certain marketing technology just because it is popular at the moment, or because the perceived benefits of it seem very catchy. However, implementing marketing technology should be in line with your overall business strategy, because technology is just a tool that will allow you to execute your strategy. And the second top reason is the lack of time and resources. Even if companies go about automation the right way, they face the challenge of not having enough time and human resources to implement the strategy. And this is happening because most businesses are already running at full capacity, and they cannot afford to take their employees from their day-to-day work and then focus full-time on such a project. And the third key reason is the lack of know-how, which means that even if companies can afford to dedicate their resources to a marketing automation project, it doesn't necessarily mean that their team will have the knowledge and expertise that is needed to successfully implement the technology and to set up the complete marketing automation process. But luckily, there are companies that specialize at implementing marketing technologies, and companies such as Alite International can help businesses to go through the entire journey of implementation of marketing automation, and to make sure that they see a return on their investment in marketing technology. So with this, I would like to end the first part of this webinar and to open up the space to hear any questions that you might have regarding marketing automation technology. I would like to thank all of you for your attention. And now I'm going to give you my colleague Christian to take over the presentation and to answer any questions that you might have.
Hello, everyone. I hope that everybody had as much fun as I had listening to Ljubica's presentation. I will try now to answer as many questions as possible afterwards, and if we don't have the time to answer all of them, I'll make sure to send them afterwards via email along with a recorded session of the webinar. Just as a reminder, we have around 15 minutes left, so feel free to submit any remaining questions. I'll start answering the ones that were submitted previously, and I'll pick up as we go. Okay, let's start. So we have one here. What's the process of choosing the right customer engagement platform for your business? Well, I would say that the process starts with a kind of an analysis of your current business needs. In terms of, you need to understand the type of the business you have, the size of your customer base, and the channels that you want to engage customers on, and of course the budget you have available to invest in such technology. So once you know what kind of channels you want to target, the size of your business, and the budget you have, it will be much easier to find the right fit, the right engagement platform for your business from the multitude of technology available on the market. Okay, when you're talking about engagement platforms, are you talking about CRMs, CDPs, or something else? That's an interesting question. You can think of engagement platforms as kind of the next level of CRMs, in terms of that cross-channel engagement platforms, based on the name, focus on engaging your customers on all or as many channels as possible, with a strong emphasis on audience segmentation, having a cross-channel approach in terms of that the campaigns you send out and the metrics you get, they correlate within each other. They're not isolated like separate email or separate web channel, but you can use data from one channel to modify campaigns on another one. Another interesting thing that the engagement platform specialize in is triggered campaigns and building out complete user journeys of multiple different campaigns on multiple different channels. So if you of course they overlap a lot with CRMs, but you can look at this in a sense that having CRMs are mostly meant for B2B businesses, while customer engagement platforms focus more on B2C businesses that have to target a vast number of customers over multiple different channels. I hope that answers your question. Let's move on to the next one. I have an e-commerce website, so I was wondering if I can send automated messages to users that have added something to their cart but didn't purchase the item. I want to send the email, let's say 2 hours after they added something in the cart. This is actually a perfect use case of marketing automation. So using the type of technology we've shown on a couple of slides before, you could set up automated journeys, triggers actually, that will send a message at a certain amount of time after someone places an item in your shopping basket on your e-commerce store. You can even set up rules that during that delay of, let's say, 2 hours, as in your example, if that user came back and finished the purchase, you can even set up a rule to cancel this message going out to the customer. So this is, yeah, as I said, a perfect use case for marketing automation. Okay, let's see what we have here. Do you have any examples of how you can leverage the benefits if you're a B2B company with a very long sales cycle? That's an interesting company. That's actually something that us ourselves are struggling with and have been doing it. So marketing automation, even though the slides we've shown make more sense for B2C businesses, can be applied to B2B context as well. So data enrichment analytics tools can be used for B2B, learning more about your leads, about the companies they work for, and then use CRM platforms, combine it with a CRM platform to build a funnel, let's say, of messages until you warm up a lead, until they're in a position, they're ready to have a meeting with your sales representative. And even like even in the context of B2B, you're probably gonna use advertising. So you can use data from your CRM and use a customer data management platform to pass this data to advertising platform, probably most often LinkedIn for B2B advertising, and then target ads to the companies you're chasing to close deals with. So I hope this helps a bit. Okay, let's move on to the next one. What tool do you suggest for this process, and how to know if that one is applicable for my business? Also, I'd like to know how much does this cost? I'm gonna assume that the person asking this refers to an engagement platform. So as I said in the beginning, it will mostly depend on your particular business needs, meaning that you have to first analyze your business and what you want to do and achieve in the future, and decide the right engagement platform based on this. So I can't make a recommendation of a specific system until I know the nature of your business. But yeah, I guess that's the way to go about it. And about the cost, most of these technologies we've mentioned, they charge by usage, meaning that the charge goes up as your customer base grows, which is really good because it can be much cheaper for startups and smaller businesses. And then as you scale your business and increase revenues, you can go up and invest more money into the technology as well. I guess you can start really cheap, like some tools like MailChimp, they can start with less than 15 euros per month, which is, I think, a sum that almost any startup can afford. How long does this process last usually, and what type of knowledge do I need to have in my team? Well, again, the length of the process will depend highly on the size of your company and the size of your customer base. So we've seen startups implement marketing automation is in less than 4 weeks and start increasing their retention and acquisition rates and start seeing a return on their investment. On the other side, if you're an enterprise size company, it might take up to 6 to 12 months to fully implement a serious stack of marketing technology and set it up running smoothly to start seeing the real benefits of the technology. Okay, the knowledge. I guess you would need people that have let's call it a business understanding of data, meaning that you have customer data, but you would need someone with a specific skill set that can understand how to use that data in a business context or a marketing context to help you create more engaging campaigns and drive higher engagement with your product or service, drive more revenues and conversion, etc. You would also need someone with pre-knowledge of marketing technology. The positive side is that all of these tools and platforms we mentioned have extensive documentation available. They have online academies open for participants to learn how the tool itself works and how to put it to use Or many companies decide to employ consulting agencies such as Alite to help them make sense of their technology in the context of their own business. I think we've covered most of the questions. So I guess I'll talk a bit more about the types of the work that companies like Alite does. So what we do for clients is help them select and implement marketing technology in a way that aligns with their overall business strategy, and to make sure that they get the most out of it and make sure they see a positive return investment in a sensible time frame. So that means implementing customer data management platforms, implementing engagement platforms, implementing analytics tools, etc., and connecting them to have that smooth flow of data through the systems, as well as helping businesses set up campaigns, strategically set up their customer user journeys, and lead the overall adoption process of a new technology in the company. We'll also send all the answers to the questions via email, so you can review them again together with a recorded session of the webinar, so you can share it with your teammates or view it at your own convenience in the future. And I guess I'll hand it over to you at this moment. Thank you.
Well, now that the Q&A session is over, it means that this webinar is coming to its end. And like Christian already mentioned, you're going to receive an email with recordings of the webinar, including the questions and the answer. And also there will be a survey. Your opinion means a lot to us, so I will be very grateful if you take the time to answer it. If you have any more questions, feel free to drop me or Christian a line, and we'll be happy to answer you. And thank you all so much for attending today. I really enjoyed talking about cross-channel marketing, and I really hope that you had just as much as fun as I did. So stay tuned for more information about upcoming webinars, and I hope that I will see you soon. Bye.